Ladies and gentlemen, today is the 25th of December, which means that my dinner tonight is Chinese food. So Merry Christmas.
Oh,
We haven't found
that about you guys.
We haven't found great Chinese food here in Savannah. If you know some, pass it along. But this is the one time we always make sure we get it. Typically, we've been going to Hop Zing over at McAlpin Plaza, but if you know of a place that's actually good, not just a little bit better, then we are all ears. Merry Christmas, Kelvin. How you doing today?
I am doing awesome. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic! Brought to you today by Audible. Get your free audiobook, your free month at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/JKWD. That's audibletrial.com/JKWD. We talked today a couple of times about the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. I know we've brought that up in the past recently, but it comes up in our conversation with Camille Nisich today. And so we thought, that's a possibility for your free audiobook. If you'd like to head over to audibletrial.com/JKWD and claim that when you sign up. So Kelvin.
Yes, sir.
We just finished with Camille, even though this is the beginning of the episode that people are hearing now, and this was a great conversation. How you doing after that?
I'm liking that. I've come to the. She was awesome, and she didn't run out of information. I kept thinking, we're going to run her to the edge of her competence here, but no. The knowledge overfloweth, and she's got a good sense of humor, and she let me know, as we've always known, I am an anomaly on a number of levels, apparently.
Yeah,
some of which will show up in the podcast.
Yeah, we actually got confirmation on that Kelvin is weird. We got it direct from an expert.
From an expert, that's right. Yeah, so I'm either going to have to syndicate my weirdness or reform. 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, I'm thinking.
All right, well, Camille Nisich is our guest today. She's an MBA with over 17 years experience in the tech industry. She's a certified stress management and sleep science coach, a wellness educator, a registered yoga teacher, something we didn't talk about, by the way, and the creator of Daily Mind Gym. Now, Camille, like a lot of folks who enter the entrepreneur space, started with the 4-hour work week and said, "Hey, I can do this," and she is. We talk today about sleep, and I don't know.
Its importance to our existence.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and she chastises both of us for our sleep sins, and gives us tips for better sleep, and tells you how to determine your own unique amount of sleep that you should have. Ideal. That's the word I was looking for.
It's Christmas. What do you want? You can't. Yeah. What do you expect?
What I wrote down was find out how much sleep you actually need. And that does not say the word ideal quantity.
Or could be unique.
Yeah.
Which apparently I am also.
But listen all the way to the end of the episode. Camille tells you how you can get a free sleep assessment and all that stuff. And without further ado, meet Camille. Josh and Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we Welcome to the JKWD podcast. Thank you, Camille, for being here. So because you are so much better at it than I am, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and let them know who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Josh and Kelvin. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor. My name is Camille Nisich, and I am a sleep and stress coach who is passionate about helping working parents live a life with less stress and more joy. And I've been doing that for a handful of years. I also have a corporate day job where I work in online marketing. So wear many hats, but have my mission in life. So, yeah.
Great. So how did you get into the stress space?
You know, it's funny. It dates back to some, as many of us in our stories, it's something that you came through yourself, and then later you started to kind of put the pieces together. But I had some early deaths in my family when I was young. I had a brother die when I was 12. I had my mother pass away when I was 16. And I basically taught myself to meditate without knowing what meditation was. And so I just kind of would take myself to this internal space and either do visualization or just breathe. And just when the chaos was going on around me, I would just kind of go inward. And that's kind of how I like to say that I use that to not only cope, but also to excel. So like when things would get intense with school or whatever, I would just use that as a way to kind of reset myself and go forward. And it wasn't until really I had been doing it a few years that I even knew that there was a thing about meditation and mindfulness, right? So then fast forward, as I started to kind of get into the corporate world myself, and I started to see the people around me, with high stress, and think about, being an adult and thinking back to what might have caused my mother's death. She had complications of high blood pressure and diabetes. She died when she was 49 years old. Like, that really should not happen. And so I started to think, well, what kind of caused that? Like, why? And oh, by the way, when I look around me and I see these people that I work with that are super stressed out, and it kind of just came to me one day that, you know what, the key to all of this must be stress. And then when you talk about stress, you cannot exclude sleep. And so I got really passionate about, well, let me just dig into that a little bit more, get some education, but then also kind of take my life experiences and put that all together. So, yeah.
Sleep. So, what's that?
You guys are good sleepers. We're gonna have quite a conversation.
well, maybe we should. Well, maybe we should put you on the spot then, and put us on the spot.
Okay.
And let's confess our sleep sins. So I have a day job as well. It's actually a night job. I work. Weekends, my shift is kind of variable. I might finish by 6 p.m. or 10 p.m., but during the week, my shift ends about 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm on the computer. So I use blue blockers, and normally what I do is I do a biphasic. So I'll sleep. I'll go to bed basically right after work within 10 to 15 minutes. I usually fall asleep well. I set an alarm if I have something going on that I know I have to be up for, but normally don't wake to it. Normally I'm up before it anyway. That typically my body says at about 5 hours, time to get up and start your day, and then I block off another 3 hours in the afternoon for sleep. So before I go into work, I get another 3 hours. So I total about 7 to 9 a day. In 2 distinct sleep sessions.
Right. I wouldn't say it's ideal, obviously, but it sounds like you have to build your world kind of around your schedule, which makes sense. When you are, air quotes, a shift worker, or you're someone who works at night, you have to work extra hard to make sure that you are, so the blue blockers are helpful. I'm concerned about that whole 5-hour block in the middle there. When you say your body tells you it's time to wake up, I feel like it might be cues around you that tell you it's time to wake up, but not necessarily your body. So could it be light? Could it be other people that you live with? Whatever. I'm not sure. But I feel like there's some environmental cues, not necessarily your body.
Could be the light. My wife is usually gone by the time I wake up. So apparently I haven't woken up when she leaves.
I would imagine if you went to bed 2-ish. The other piece of it is that, you need to be diligent about managing your circadian rhythm. So basically the circadian rhythm is your cycle of sleepless sleepiness and wakefulness, right? And usually, if you're on a day job scenario, it goes with the sun, right? But since you're working at night, you need to now mimic that, right? So that your body has those cues of, oh, okay, this type of light means that I'm supposed to be awake. This other type of light means that I'm supposed to be asleep or getting sleepy, because you kind of go through that process of getting sleepy and going to sleep. Getting the biphasic in terms of getting yourself enough of sleep, that sounds like a solution that you're working towards. If for some reason, though, you can still sleep continuously, if you would adjust maybe the light or those other cues, that would be better to get it continuous, because if you're breaking it up in those two phases, you're not getting as many opportunities for REM. Which means you're not getting things like brain cleaning, energy restoration. Depending on how deep you're getting, it might be impairing immune function. It varies. So really continuously having your block would be best.
Really? Biphasic. Say that. What is? I mean, it sounds like it should be self-explanatory, but let's not take that for granted, because sometimes
I use it to mean I sleep in 2 distinct sessions.
Oh, is that it?
So that's
easy.
That's it.
And they're not next to each other.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They're interrupted. But there's really,
there's usually about a 5 or 6 hour separation, and I get up and I get some exercise and I have something to eat. And if we have a call like this, then I do that. If we have any household chores that need doing, if I need to run to the grocery store, that all happens in that time. And then I go back to sleep from about 1:30 till about 4:30 in the afternoon. And I do that in as close to a dark room as I can get. And I can get it pretty dark. There's a covered porch, and then I have green felt curtains and blinds. So it's fairly dark in there. And then I get up and make sure there's dinner.
Yeah, well, it's good that you're getting the darkness for that second phase, so that's good. But again, you want to make sure. So there's 4. It used to be 5 sleep cycles. Now they took one out. But basically, you've got your kind of early sleep where you're kind of awake but still sleeping. And then as you go into those deeper phases, you want to make sure you're hitting the deeper phases and you're hitting REM. And you're going to have about, in a 7 to 8 hour night, you would have about 4 REM cycles. But if you're having those interruptions, you may not be getting to enough REM. So let's say in your first block, you're getting 2 cycles, maybe. Because a sleep cycle is generally 90 to 110, 120 minutes, depending age, different other factors. So you're probably getting 2 cycles in that first block. In your second block of sleep, you might get 1, but again, you're not getting a total of 4 to 5, which is on average what you'd like to have. So that, it's concerning, basically.
You're really going to love my system.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
My system is I go till I stop, I lay down, I go to sleep immediately, and 4 hours later, give or take 30 minutes, I wake up.
Oh.
I'm not tired. If I actually manage to get 8 hours sleep, well, that never happens in a block, first of all. Number 2, if I actually stay in bed that long, I will be exhausted when I wake up. 4 hours is like, and that's what my body does, whether it's light, whether it's dark, whether it's whatever. At 4 hours, my body's like, okay, time to get up. And I go like, oh, I don't want to. And it's like, well, so?
There are
You're awake now.
Differences with sleep need, definitely. And I don't know your age, because we're not that well.
Would you like to know?
If you'd like to share your age.
I can share. I'm 64 years old.
Okay. So that is relatively normal for your age group.
So old people don't sleep. But I've been doing that for like lots of years now.
That part is bad. Because there's a cumulative effect to that reduction in REM sleep, for example. If you have impaired sleep, if you have any type of insomnia, if you have situations, be it lifestyle factors that are keeping you from getting enough REM, you're opening yourself up to chronic illnesses, Alzheimer's, all sorts of things. Because during REM sleep is when your brain cleans itself. So your brain is really active. Your body is not. It's basically paralyzed. But that's when things like like memory integration and brain cleaning and all sorts of higher level brain function are happening. And if you're not getting into that enough, then you're kind of impairing it. And if you've been in that situation for many, many years, then there's, like I said, there's a cumulative effect. When it will show up, it's hard to know. But yes,
I'm probably the healthiest person I know. I'm the only person in my family who was on no medication, meds, none of that stuff.
Yeah, there are. I'm curious if you ever were a sleeper who was like a 6.5 hour sleeper. Were you ever a sleeper in that range? There's a very small portion of the population, I mean, literally less than 5%, who are people who can get well rested between 5.5 and 6.5 hours of sleep. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm one of those people. But truly, it's literally 3 to 4% of the population. And everyone else who's sleeping at that is because there's some lifestyle factor or some stressor or whatever that's causing them to sleep that amount. And they think that they're functioning well.
That's when I got divorced the last time. There's not, got rid of the wife and the cats, and we hadn't had a problem with that for a long time.
Right.
Let me see. I'm trying to let me think if there's any outliers here. Because really, I mean, once I actually get tired, I go to sleep. And when I go to bed and I lay down to go to sleep, I go to sleep.
So that was the next question I was going to ask.
Beg pardon?
That was the question I was going to ask. You go to sleep quickly.
I go to sleep. Gone. Under 10 minutes. I used to put on music to soothe me, and I never would hear it go off, in 10 minutes. So when I lay down and go to sleep, 90% of the time I'm asleep. And then when I wake up, I wake up. Now, what messes me up, that's if I let myself wake up naturally. So if I end up going to bed at 4 o'clock, for instance, I will wake up at 8. If I end up going at 3, I'll end up at 7. I'll wake up at 7. If I end up going to bed at 4 o'clock and I have a 7 o'clock meeting and I wake myself up, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad. That doesn't do me anything at all. But what I do in those cases normally is get another nap in the afternoon, but those rarely last more than an hour.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you're having, so you touched on a really important point there, that when you're normally a 4-hour sleeper, but when you hit that 3 hours, you feel awful. Well, what happens is if you get your sleep interrupted before you complete a cycle, you're going to feel awful, which is why if you lay down knowing you've got a defined amount of time, if you really, really want to try to maximize your sleep, you want to think about how many cycles you're going to get in and then cut that window. So let's just say you had 5 hours to sleep, but you know that you wouldn't get your full cycle in. Well, then cut it down to 4, let's say, as an example, because like roughly it sounds like you're a 2-hour cycle person. So then you would want to cut it down. So you wouldn't want to add that extra hour on because you're going to feel groggy and awful getting that extra hour more than you would if you stayed at 4 hours.
So I don't well, I've heard about the cycles, but I don't understand them so much. But I read a book recently, Mel Robbins, 5-second
rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was talking about, because she's all into the neuroscience and stuff, which you are also, obviously. But she was talking about the snooze button.
Oh, it's awful.
So like if you wake up and then you go, oh, just 10 more minutes, let me hit the snooze button. And she said that's bad for you because you end up going back to sleep and starting another sleep cycle. And that's worse for you than anything else you can do.
So true. And it's funny because I literally don't even know how to operate the snooze alarm on my alarm clock. And I've never, ever been a snooze alarmer. Like when I hear the alarm, I get up. Oftentimes I wake up before it. My husband is a snooze alarmer. And so we have obviously 2 separate alarm clocks. And I don't that because I'm thinking,
but does his alarm clock wake you up? That's a big...
Of course. Yeah. But usually I am up before him because I'm an early to bed, early to riser. And so typically I'm getting up before he. So luckily I don't have to get.
How much sleep a night do you get?
I'm a 7-hour sleeper. Occasionally I might need a little bit more, but let me tell you a little bit about figuring out how much sleep you actually need. So the best way to figure out how much sleep you need is to have a 3, ideally 4, but at least a 3-day stretch where you can go to sleep at the time you know you should go to sleep, not the time you normally go to sleep, but the time you should. Mm-hmm. And so Josh, in your case, if you know you've got your
should. Tell me should.
Meaning, well, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But you know that yours is work schedule dependent, so your should is related to your work schedule. So you're going to lay down at that time. You're going to have a stretch of 3 days where you do not have to wake up with an alarm clock. So ideally around the holidays or whatever is a good time to do that. And then for 3 straight days, you're going to lay down at that time that you should lay down, and you're going to wake up naturally, and you're going to record how much time that was. And when you take the average of those, that is your sleep need. And everyone's sleep need is unique. So this whole every adult needs to get 8 hours is a total myth. Like I said, there's a very small percentage of the population that does well in the 5.5 to 6.5 hour range. It's very, very small. On average, it's somewhere between 7 and 8 hours, but it changes, like I said, with age. Teenagers need more. When you kind of hit those, kind of 30 to 50-ish range, it may range between 7 and 9 on average for people, and then it typically goes down as you get, kind of in the 60s and above.
So I'm in the hopeless. So pretty soon I don't have to sleep
at all.
You're not in
hopeless. No. No.
Yeah, pretty soon I don't even have to sleep at all. No.
It never goes to zero.
So do you use Fitbit's got this thing where supposedly it measures whether or not you're sleeping well or something. Is that like marketing hype, or is that real?
Excuse me. I will say that no, I don't. I have not done a ton of research on those, but personally, I have issues with having EMF on your body all the time.
Okay.
I feel like that's just bad for energy.
All right.
And energy transfer and any energy retention, etc. So I personally am not a fan of wearable technology. Having said that, no, I haven't done the research. I'm not certain. I feel like for years and years, just a sleep log, if that's something that you wanted to keep track of, worked great. And now all of a sudden, there's technology to do it. I think it's probably helpful for people who suspect that they're either restless or what have you, and they don't know. They just know that they wake up and they don't feel good. Mm-hmm. It might be useful from that standpoint, but do you need to be monitoring all the time? I feel like a log would be sufficient. And there's things that you can do to kind of put yourself into a better sleep hygiene or environment that can help you get better sleep so that you don't necessarily need the technology, right?
So let's back up a little bit, because what we haven't talked about yet is the benefits of proper sleep, on stress, on productivity, on whatever else. Mm-hmm. What are some of those benefits?
So, it varies by age group. Obviously we all know when you're a child, it's everything from growth to development of motor function to, mostly it's all types of growth, right? Immune support, but it's really the same for adults. And so it's like, we know that with respect to kids, or when we were a kid and your parents would tell you, oh, you got to get your sleep, whatever. Well, that was all true. And so it's everything from good decision making. And that might be, cognitive function in terms of, complex reasoning. It could be food choices. So it could be driving. I mean, I actually read a post of someone, the other day who was talking about how she'd been on 2 hours of sleep for the past week and a half. She was air quotes done. And I thought, not only are you done, I hope you don't live in my geography, because you should not be driving a motor vehicle when I'm driving around you. Like that, you should not be operating a motor vehicle. So, it's high processing functions of your brain get dramatically repaired if you don't sleep. Immune function. I mean, 100%, if you are sleeping well, you have better immune function. That's why when you're not well, you should go to sleep, because that's where the repair happens, right? And so even with people who are athletically inclined and they think, oh, I need to, hit the gym and I need to do, periodization of my workout and whatever. And I'm thinking, but are you sleeping? Because muscle growth actually happens while you're asleep, not while you're in the gym, right? So it's really important for literally every vital function of your body. I mean, everything. Blood pressure. Oftentimes what happens is there are, we see a lot of, cognitive disorders and depression and anxiety and whatever. On average, about half of those diagnosed cases have some sort of sleep issue with them, be it a sleep disorder, like in the insomnia realm, apnea, what have you. So there's a definite relationship between brain function and sleep.
Okay, you were just talking about, you mentioned Alzheimer's earlier.
Mm-hmm.
As a function of, not enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard that from the medical community. They talk about different and mostly they talk about different drugs causing it and deficiencies causing it. What give us more about your take on Alzheimer's and
Yeah, so there's a lot of research, and again, we're still digging into it, but there's quite a lot of research around different plaques building up, and like kind of like it spells the same as like plaque on your teeth, but it's different plaques. And so if you don't, like I said, when you're in REM, a brain cleaning process happens where the brain literally says, let's take all these defective cells that have been created my day, and I'm going to clean them out, and I'm going to just get rid of them. They're going to die. But if you don't get into that REM, that process doesn't happen. And so over time, those plaques build up. And typically it takes 20 to 30 years or so for you to really see that plaque production reach a level that is significant. But that's because you're, other factors, but poor sleep over that time period is really going to dramatically increase it. And one of I don't know if either of you follow sports, but Pat Head Summit, she was like world famous women's basketball coach. She died of Alzheimer's at a very early age. High level coaches like that, they're burning the candle from both ends. They're traveling. Travel definitely impacts your sleep, right? Unless you take precautions. So it's travel, it's staying up, it's all of those demands on your time. It's planning for the game. I mean, like coaches in general high-level coaches do not sleep well. And I think about the fact that also women are typically more susceptible to having insomnia. And so she was a woman. She's got this high-stress job. She's not sleeping well. And yeah, I mean, this brilliant mind and person who is contributing to society gone too early because of...
She was a really fast decline, if I remember.
Yes,
it was
very
just...
fast.
All of a sudden, Pat Summit's sick. All of a sudden, Pat Summit's dead. And it was,
yes. So there's different research on the relationship between the plaques and the onset of Alzheimer's. And so, again, if you want to protect your brain, one of the best things that you can do is to make sure you're getting what I call restorative sleep, because not all sleep is created equally. Like you can be asleep and it not be good sleep, right? We all know that. We've all been there.
We got a buzz in the middle of one of your things. Did you say we should get?
Oh, I said restorative. Okay. Restorative. So because not all sleep is created equally. So you can have sleep, but it not be good sleep, it not be deep sleep, right? So yeah. So for example, in the case of people who have alcohol regularly, alcohol's going to let you fall asleep, but it's not going to let you get as deep of sleep, right? Depending on how much you have, right? If you're kind of over consuming. So repeatedly doing that means that you're staying in those earlier sleep stages. You're not getting into REM. You're not getting into the place where immune function is being restored, et cetera. So, you just kind of want to think about whether your sleep is actually restorative.
So that was, you brought up alcohol, and that kind of wanted to get into nutrition and substance intake a little bit. How can alcohol is a common substance that we use in the society. Caffeine's a substance that we use a lot in society. We're all sitting here sipping out of mugs, and the typical American diet, we'll call it, is not meant for optimal health. We'll say it that way. How can what you put in your body affect your sleep, and how quickly can you turn that around with changes? Yeah,
so let's talk about coffee first. Okay. So coffee is one, you're right, socially, culturally, we are a big coffee drinker. I'm a coffee drinker. I actually happen to be having decaf herbal tea right now because I'm doing a fast and I'm having no caffeine and no solid foods for 4 days for the winter solstice. But that's a whole other conversation. Okay, so let's talk about coffee. I love coffee. No judgment there. But coffee has a half-life of about 7 hours. Again, it varies by height, weight, gender, etc. It actually affects women a little bit more than men because of the enzyme differences in their bodies. But the 7-hour half-life means that if you're drinking coffee, and that's half-life, right? That means half of it is still going to be in your system at about 7 hours. So if you're drinking coffee in the afternoon, it's going to still be circulating in your system and affecting your sleep when you go lay down if you're on a regular sleep schedule. So for example, I have a blog post actually that's called Why I Have a Coffee Curfew, and maybe you should too. I don't drink caffeine after noon. Like literally I just don't do it. Every once in a while, I grew up in the South. I happen to live in upstate New York now. When I go to the South, I'll have a sweet tea with dinner as kind of like a treat. And I know that I will not sleep that night. I will not sleep well. I'll be in that early phase of sleep. It'll take me a while to kind of fall asleep. I know that going in though, right? But yeah, so caffeine is a big one, and having a coffee curfew or a caffeine curfew is a really good idea.
She's not gonna like what I have to say.
At what hour are you drinking coffee, Kelvin? Please tell me.
And ask him how much.
Oh no.
Coffee does not affect my sleep.
You can build up a tolerance to it, but I wouldn't say it doesn't affect your sleep. But anyway, tell me how much you drink.
Oh, minimally a pot a day.
A 12-cup pot?
Yeah, and probably more. I drink coffee a lot. I can drink coffee before I go to bed, and I still go to bed and I go to sleep.
Yeah, you fall asleep. We didn't talk about that, but let me come back to the falling asleep part. But yes, you fall asleep, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect your sleep, right? So there might be some issues with restoration there. But again, thinking about how you feel when you wake up, but you probably over years have built up some level of tolerance, and that's why
I'd say.
Not, yeah.
So, I mean, I plan to go to 90-95, right? So if I'm doing, hold on. If I'm doing something and at about, 87 and a half, it's going to say, all right, we're tired of you doing this to us all this time. Just forget it. Bam. Okay, I need to know if it's going to sneak up on me, but the things that I see like don't affect me in a way that I notice. I'll put it like that. Okay.
Right.
So if I stop drinking coffee, I had more trouble drinking like a lot of water because I really got up a lot at night for that. But I don't see the problem. I'm alert. Am I alert, Josh? Most time.
Yeah. You're typically very alert.
But by the same token, I'm aware that there's things that I may be doing that I just don't see, and that's going to sneak up over here, and all of a sudden going to pounce, and then suddenly I won't be able to remember my name. Don't plan for those to happen.
And Kelvin, I don't mean to throw you under the bus there. I used to be, until the last few months, I was also drinking about a pot of coffee a day, and I had other considerations that
you got motivations to.
Yeah, I had other considerations that made me cut back, and now I'm typically drinking a cup of tea a day, and then every third or fourth day I'll add a cup of coffee, and I find myself very, very creative and productive on the coffee. So I tend to have it on days like this when we have a call, so that I've done things like, oh, hey, but this is only recently that I've said, oh, if I have a cup of coffee today, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and allow my other days to be a little less crazy, for those other health considerations. But I mean, Kelvin, you visited us, here about a year and a half ago now.
Yeah.
And even with the fact that we were out of the house, 6 hours a day, we were drinking 2 to 3 pots of coffee a day between the two.
Yeah. Started for me in the military. I blame it on the government.
A lot of military. My dad used to be in the military. He actually wasn't a coffee drinker, but a lot of military people that I know, big coffee drinkers. So I know that culture. So sometimes it is cultural.
Drinking coffee, Josh. Now, do you drink? No, you're fasting right now. When you're not fasting, how much coffee you drink?
I usually have a cup and a half, maybe a day. Some days not.
Really?
don't have it, but yeah.
Oh man, Paul DeLima loves me because I stay stocked up, but I just do that,
But I do enjoy it. I definitely do, but I think I'm aware and I want to remain sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to, overconsume it. And then I know that, again, it tends to affect women a little bit more in terms of kind of that half-life being a little bit longer. And so, yeah, I just try to make sure that I keep it. Mm-hmm.
So, sleep. We apparently need sleep. You're the expert. So, for those of us who think, and you may have answered this partially already, for those of us who, well, maybe we want to try this more sleep thing, knowing that everything we do in life is a habit. So, what would you suggest on, trying to slow down our busy lives when we have things going on every second and getting more actual sleep to see if it's going to do any good? Because like I said, I go to sleep, I wake up, go.
Yeah. So first, let me talk about, you said two things. I'll come back to your thing and I'll come back to Josh's. But first, you said you hit, you go to sleep quickly. That going to sleep quickly can sometimes be a disorder. So literally, like if you're one of those people that your head hits the pillow and you're out cold, that's probably borderline disorder, right? Like I'm not a doctor, but you should really kind of fall asleep. That's why we call it falling asleep or descending into sleep, I like to call it. You shouldn't have your head hit the pillow and then you immediately be snoring.
No.
So yeah.
10 minutes. But 10 minutes.
10 minutes is fine. That's perfect.
10 minutes.
Even 5 minutes, but just like not literally head hits the pillow and totally out.
No. I mean, I calm down into it. It's not like I'm exhausted.
Exactly. Perfect. That's what I meant. So yeah, that's perfect. And that's what I try to recommend to people. I'm like, give yourself an environment and a habit and a routine where you can get everything set up, get your pre-bed routine down, get your environment set up, and then let yourself descend into sleep. Sometimes people will need help with that, and so I give them tools, but really it's things like making sure you have the appropriate level of darkness. People often say, oh, but the light doesn't bother me. Well, it actually tells your brain things that don't necessarily bother you, right? So for example, even my alarm clock, I have it on the dimmest setting, but I keep a bandana over it. So I don't even want the light from my alarm clock shining near me. Yeah, I just no. So having enough darkness, temperature is very important because your body temperature is going to go down while you're asleep, and you want it to be relatively cool. You don't want your body temperature to be high, which is why I always tell people don't do an intense workout before you go to sleep. If you're one of those people that gets truly warmed up by a shower, be careful about the temperature of your shower if you're taking it before bed. You definitely want your body to be cooling. You don't want to be doing things that are going to bring your body temperature up, because if your body temperature is raised, then you're not going to sleep as deeply. So those things are good. And then
I'm also the last remaining man on the planet, I think, that actually has a full wave waterbed.
Shut up. That is impressive. I feel like I stepped back into, I don't know, the late 70s.
I'm old fashioned. I don't go to the new stuff, and I'm like, I want to get rid of it, but especially in upstate New York, waterbed, climbing to a waterbed, it's wonderful. It's right. Wonderful. That may be why I'm not married now, because I don't need one when you got a waterbed. You know what I'm saying? But see, I realize that I am an anomaly. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, the expert's like, yes, you are weird. But yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that eventually, but I'm like scared now because my body likes that.
Yeah, you're well used to it, I would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, but you raise an interesting point though, and that's sometimes tricky when you have a bed partner, but it's, you've got to find that firmness or temperature or whatever that works for you, and sometimes sadly that varies. So when you have a bed partner, those are things that you need to kind of concern yourself with, like, do I need a fan and they need an extra layer, or
Oh, that's been so many fights.
Yeah. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to be best for your sleep there, and then figure out how to make it work for both of you. So that's really, really important. The bed partner.
Separate houses seem to work for me, apparently.
I think most people don't want to go quite that extreme. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I got to work on that, I guess.
But that's an interesting point, and also a point along the spectrum of what can happen, though. So my husband, for decades, has been a snorer. And for years and years, I have slept with earplugs because of it. And finally, I just, as I did more study, I said, okay, time out. You need a sleep study. We need to figure out, what is going to be the tool to kind of help you with this, because it's not good for you. It's disturbing my sleep, et cetera. And so he ended up having sleep apnea, a moderate level of sleep apnea. And so he has a CPAP, et cetera. But I think so many people think, oh, well, it's just, they snore, or I snore and I'm just going to deal with it. But that is literally impacting your sleep. It is impacting your blood oxygen level. It's impacting your blood pressure. It's impacting your ability to get in deeper phases of sleep. I mean, that is a huge, huge issue. I mean, there are about, the number varies, but on average about 9 million Americans who have undiagnosed sleep apnea, they estimate. And that is huge. I mean, again, I don't know if you know what happens in sleep apnea. Does everybody know what happens?
No. Well, from what I understand, you stop breathing and then you wake up fast.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of friends with sleep apnea who have CPAPs and stuff, and they're still unable to sleep even with those devices. So, but go ahead and tell us what exactly sleep apnea is.
Yeah, so there's things called hypopneas and apneas. Hypopnea means there's a partial reduction in oxygen, and an apnea is actually a pause in your breathing. On average, it's about 10 to 30 seconds. And so when you get a sleep study, they measure how many apneas and hypopneas you have in a particular period of time. And based on that, they give you a rating, and they say, okay, you're either mild, moderate, or severe apnea. And then, they recommend either conservative methods or, to the CPAP. I do know that it's a common problem to get the CPAP machine to either fit well or allow you to sleep in your primary sleep position. So a lot of times if you're, a side sleeper, or definitely if you're a stomach sleeper, that's just not going to work, right? So I do know that there are times when you have, people who have a hard time getting the right fit or the right comfort, et cetera. So I know that's a challenge, but it really is important to try to kind of go down that path if you truly do have sleep apnea, because there's, again, lots of impaired brain function if you're not breathing for periods of your night. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I want to come back to one question that Josh asked about what you intake. One of the things that's important. So we talked about caffeine. We talked a little bit about alcohol, but there's a lot of people who take sleep aids. Mm-hmm. And there's a spectrum of them. There's like the melatonin, there's the OTC melatonin, there's the prescription, there's all sorts of drugs, benzodiazepines, all sorts of things. People need to be careful with that. Let's talk about melatonin. Most of the over-the-counter melatonin is sold in overdose quantities, meaning it is more than you would be prescribed to take. So over-the-counter melatonin, you'll see 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams. Really, melatonin prescription strength that you should be given is somewhere in the 3 to 5 milligram range. So if you're taking that 10 to 20 milligrams, that is not good. And so we really want to think about, well, what are ways that I can naturally have my melatonin production where it should be? Because that's really what the body was designed to do, right? So for things like that, it's making sure you get proper sunlight, making sure that you are, again, Josh has a unique case, but making sure that you're getting the right type of light at the right time of day. So trying not to be on your computer late at night, especially not right before you're about to sleep if you are having the blue blockers on. But you want to give your body the best opportunity to do what it needs to do with melatonin and serotonin production so that you sleep naturally. But when you start to kind of take this over the counter, people often think, oh, well, that's just my solution. I just take this over the counter. I'm like, well, that's an overdose quantity, first of all. Second of all, the effectiveness over time is probably going to be reduced. And I've had so many people tell me, oh, yeah, it used to work for me, and now it doesn't. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, you were flooding your body with melatonin, too much melatonin, and then now it's no longer effective.
So what exactly does melatonin do? What is
it signals your body that it's basically time to wind down, so it makes you sleepy.
And this is it's a hormone that you make, correct?
You make it.
So if you take a supplement and then you wind up taking too much of it, does your body just stop making it on its own?
There can be, impaired, and I'm not a doctor, but there can be impaired production for your body. You're correct. But what typically happens is that you're getting to a situation that makes you so groggy.
Okay, we're getting it. I don't know if it's headphone position or something. We're getting a really intense kind of a beep that's drowning you out.
Can you hear me now better?
Try it again.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder if it is the power supply. I don't know. Is that better?
Okay. Just go ahead and.
Okay.
Just go ahead and.
Okay.
Talk to the Camille.
Okay. So melatonin, typically when people are over-the-counter melatonin, they're going to be groggy when they wake up because you have a natural cycle of it. It's not as if your body starts to produce it and then it stays at that consistent level all night. Well, through the night, it comes back down, right? And then your cortisol is going to come up. You're going to wake up, and typically that should happen naturally, with the sun cycle, with your normal body clock, which, by the way, your body clock is not exactly 24 hours. You just kind of start to regulate it with the day clock. So you want to just make sure that you're letting your body manage those regulations without artificially increasing one or the other. And like I said, most people will say over time, the effectiveness of it decreases, and they're back where they were with their insomnia or what have you. So.
And how about those more, the deeper sleep? We'll call them sleep aids, but
yeah, which is also a slippery slope. So usually, what happens with those is that again, over time, the effectiveness will start to decrease. The dosage will have to be increased, and typically, those drugs, the way they work in the brain, they help you fall asleep, but they don't necessarily help you stay asleep, nor do they necessarily help you get the best sleep, right? So you're not necessarily getting restorative sleep, but you'll fall asleep, right? And so a lot of times on those, people will say, hey, it knocks me out, and then it stopped knocking me out, and then now I'm waking up. And so, again, you want to do as much as you can to naturally support your sleep and to give yourself, the best situation to sleep in. And then if you need to use aids, in temporary doses, but people often will get on them and they'll be on them for years and years and years. And I'm thinking, and then your doses are going up and then they're not effective. And so, yeah, it's a slippery slope. But if you have a doctor who is prescribing them, hopefully they're giving you that education, and hopefully they're trying to tell you that, hey, I'm going to give you this as a fix for your problem that you're in right now, but let's not have you on them forever. So, yeah.
We will see.
Yeah,
well,
but follow the money, right? Because what? There's I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the most true things I've ever heard said in life.
Yeah,
follow
there's
the money.
millions.
Wonderful.
I don't know. I forget the last numbers I saw, but let's just say it's somewhere on the order of 10 to 12 million people, I think, that take some sort of prescription sleep aid. I mean, it's staggering. It's a lot of money.
Mm.
And then again, if they think you're going to be on them forever, then that's, again, it's a nice little annuity.
I mean, there's a meds they put you on forever anyway. Oh, you can never stop taking this. But that's that's another podcast. That's a
whole other thing.
But,
right.
Oh gosh, do I have any more questions? I think that's set.
But yeah,
I think that's good. So my case is, I just got to find out if I'm really sleeping naturally or if I don't, and that means write my daily motivational a long time ahead of time, so I don't have to worry about it for 3 or 4 days, and then just go to bed at some ridiculously early hour, 11 o'clock or something. Which that
would be awesome.
That's almost not possible. But I wake up at 3 o'clock, right?
So what I usually tell people when they're trying to adjust their sleep hours, we talked about that a little bit, but I'll make a couple points there. You can't do it kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off style. usually that doesn't work and you just kind of fall back to whatever your habit was. So you want to step into it literally 15 minutes at a time. So if you're going to sleep at 3 and your goal is 11, you want to give yourself 15-minute step in over the course of, and really that 15-minute step in, like make that one change for a week, then the next week add another 15 minutes, and the next week. So it's going to take you a while to make that transition, but it's worth it, because truly all sleep hours are not created equal either. So we said not all sleep is created equal, obviously, because some is good and some is not deep enough. The hours that you sleep, let's say you sleep 7 hours, the hours that you're asleep matter. Sleep from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. is not equivalent to as sleep, from 10 to 5. That's not equivalent sleep. And actually, any hour of sleep that you get before midnight is really worth 2 in terms of restorative function. So it's really a good idea. I know, Josh, you have an odd case.
I don't understand. But say that again now.
The actual brain processing restoration is better if you sleep, say, from 10 to 5, if you were to sleep from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of studies around like depth of the sleep, quality of the sleep, length of time in the phases that you need to be in, those deeper phases being in them longer, because it's very tied to the day clock and your circadian rhythm, right? So again, if you're someone who has off schedule, you need to, as much as possible, try to replicate the light cycles, the temperature change, etc., of a regular AM to PM day, so that you can have those situations where you're getting the best sleep and making sure that you're hitting those windows of time. So I always tell people, if there are 4 hours that you want to be asleep, 10 to 2 are those 4 hours, right? And I know that's tough for a lot of people, because culturally they're people who stay up, or by habit, they're people who stay up late. But, if you can back that up, I know. It sounds like you're many, many decades, I guess, at this point, Kelvin. By habit, you stay up late. But we can never be friends after like 9 o'clock, because I'll be going to bed and you'd be like, I'm hitting my second wind. Oh, that's another point. When you feel tired, even if it's outside of your normal sleep time, so if it's a late evening or what have you, if you can, go to sleep then. Because if you hit that second wind, it's going to be harder for you to go to sleep. So like, for example, when the time changes and it gets a little darker, and maybe you start to get sleepy at, 10 instead of midnight, go with that first instinct of your body to feel tired and go to sleep. Because if you push through to midnight, it's likely that you're going to push that going to sleep even later, and that's not good, right? So I always say, don't get your second wind. Go.
Yeah, that whole time change thing. I seem to have more trouble with it one way than the other. So what? I've heard stories about how that actually messes us up for sleep and stuff. So what's your take on when we actually have the time change and we have to readjust to sleep hours and stuff?
I tell people to step in, and when my kids even were younger, I would step them into it. So over the course of a week or so, I would do that 15-minute step forward or step back. And so even as adults, we can do that. So when it's coming, right? It's not like usually it doesn't sneak up on us. We know that October, we're going to fall back, So, and what is it, like March, April, when we spring forward?
Somewhere. See, you don't know what it is either.
Well, it varies a little bit.
Well, they advertise it. We can look
late
at
late October.
I Google everything. When does time change?
Exactly. Well, you start putting that in your calendar. So it's coming. And heck, I think even Google Calendar puts it in there for you, right? So
could be. Let me look at that.
Yeah, so you can actually just phase it in a week ahead.
Step into it. Yeah. And when my kids, like I said, when they were really young, they're like 7 and 9 now, but when they were babies and toddlers, I would literally step them into it to just make sure I didn't have the fiasco on my hands.
Cool. Wow.
So I'm going to ask you about mornings in a minute, but first I want to hear what you would suggest what would be the ideal last hour, 90 minutes of the day for optimal sleep?
So ideal would be you're not eating in that window. Ideal. I know that's not always what people can do. So let's just take that 90-minute window. You're not eating in that window, hopefully. if you had a drink in the evening, hopefully you're finished consuming it. So you're not consuming right up to, I don't know why I've got this crazy glare. You're not consuming your drink right up until sleep. Definitely at the 90-minute mark, but positively by the hour mark, turning off devices, right? I know that's really hard. I know that we have the ability to dial down the blue light. I actually have a little plug on my computer that starts to adjust the blue light for me. It's called Get Flux.
Okay, yeah, I use the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. So I love that. So either dialing down the blue light or actually turning off all devices, and then giving yourself a sleep routine. I mean, again, I'll take it back to kids because I work with parents and I am a parent. You know that when you're preparing a child for sleep, it's like, okay, they've got to have their bath, and then, you know, they're going to brush their teeth, and then there's a story, and there's this wind down period, and then, you know, they go to sleep. And so I like to give people, you know, a scenario like that. Again, sometimes people can't do the 90 minutes, sometimes people can't do the hour, but 30 minutes, surely you can start preparing for bed 30 minutes, right? So get your temperature right, get your darkness. I do natural sleep aids that I suggest for people. And I tell them, okay, if you're going to use those, start to use those about 20 minutes before. And then, you know, you're brushing your teeth or whatever. And then I have people do some sort of either brain dump or gratitude exercise. So oftentimes people will tell me, oh, I can't go to sleep because my mind is racing. Awesome. Write it all down. Write it all down by your bedside with a pen and a paper, not any electronic device, so that you've purged your mind of all those things that you either forgot to do, need to do, whatever. It's not on your mind. And when you get up in the morning, you can go, you know, put that on your to-do list or whatever, put it in your computer, but you purged it, right? So you've dumped all that. And then just take a few minutes for gratitude. If you want to read on paper, which again, I know is hard for people because they like to use their, you know, electronic readers, but yeah, if you're going to read something off of paper. And
reading
then
an iPad late at night is bad for you because sometimes when
so bad.
Out of that corner, it's really painful.
It's not just the screen that's bad; it's the gravity.
I'm doing that. You know, like if I'm reading like this, I'm like, you know, so when the iPad falls onto my face, I know it's time I can really go.
And then it bounces off of the wave of your bed, right?
Yeah,
off of the water bed.
Skimming, yeah.
I don't know, Kelvin, you've seen some of the books I read, so I have that same problem.
But I mean, again, I love ebook too. I don't read them before bed, but
So anyway,
big fan. I'm a big audiobook fan too. So yeah.
I've started that lately just because I used to drive a lot, so that's when I get my books, and that's how I listen to Mel. Last time I went to visit my family, Mel Robbins and the 5-second rule. I did that for that was a good 6. That was a she has energy.
I love that book. I love it, and I have it on audiobook too. I've listened to it twice. I love that book. It's a great book.
All right. Gee. So what other bad habits do I have that's affecting my sleep that I don't know and don't want to admit?
Using which one of you talked about? Oh, it was Josh. It was you about the exercise. Exercise is great, and it can actually, if you do it ideally earlier in the day, it'll help you with that circadian clock and preparing for later. And again, your day is shifted, but again, earlier in your day,
I normally get to my exercise within an hour and a half of my waking up. It's the first thing on my calendar every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's good. So that can help you prepare for sleep later. So like I always tell people, you know, part of preparing for sleep starts when you wake up. You know, so it's the coffee habits, it's the nutrition, it's the how you're managing your mood. And obviously because stress and sleep are so intimately related. So mood management is huge for sleep management. And then pain and inflammation, which we didn't really talk about. But a lot of people who have chronic pain, obviously it impacts their sleep. So just kind of figuring out ways that you can deal with that too. So.
Okay, and the other thing I was going to ask you about was mornings. You said, you actually just said, you start preparing for sleep as soon as you wake up. You just mentioned exercise and handle your caffeine in the morning. Anything else that you'd suggest, upon waking to bring you out of sleep? I mean, I know a lot of people I guess I don't typically wake up to an alarm, but a lot of people start their day with which I can't imagine is awesome.
It's not ideal. Technically speaking, there's some disagreements in kind of the sleep community about this, but generally speaking, people will say if you use an alarm clock and you woke up by it, then you already started your day in a sleep debt, because you're supposed to sleep until you're ready to wake up, right? So I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but I know personally I set a clock, but most of the times I'm awake a few minutes before the clock goes off. So technically speaking, I kind of fall into that camp, I guess, even though I'm still setting it.
Well, my question in that is that the sleep pattern, or is that just because your brain knows the clock's going to go off when you want to come before that?
I think it's just that you dial in kind of what your sleep hours are, at least for me, and so then my body says, "Hey, we're awake," and it's not like I'm dreading the clock. It's that, okay, my brain is already, I'm awake, I'm starting to process and what have you. But I like to literally go into so get up, go to the restroom, do some sort of mental practice, no device immediately. I personally I'm not a big eater in the morning, so I start my mental practice, my exercise, and then kind of start the rest of my day. Like, it might, at that point, after I've been up for 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour, then I might get to some electronics and what have you, but I don't usually eat first thing. That's not necessarily bad. It's just my choice.
It's your pattern.
But I like to have that kind of mental practice, exercise, kind of ramping up period, if you will. So yeah.
I keep telling myself I'm going to meditate first thing in the morning. It slips.
That's a common one, but I find that I like to tell people, do your work in before you work out into the world, be that exercise or external work. So yeah, I personally recommend that.
Okay.
It kind of lets you feel like control, as opposed to feeling like, okay, now I'm letting all these external forces start defining my day for me.
Control.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When I've been able to do that, it does feel, you do feel more prepared for the day, and so mentally you're in a better place when you start stuff rather than just start ducking and dodging
right.
problems right away. So
yeah, and I always say that mood management is stress management, and I feel like if you feel like you're in control of how your day starts and you're setting your mood consciously first. Mm-hmm. Then I feel like it almost gives you a little bit of armor for when you start encountering everybody else and their moods.
Yeah.
So, but mood management throughout the day is also important, which I also talk about. But yeah,
that's one. I don't know if Josh has got one of these, but I'm gonna ask it. If you had, with all the stuff that we've talked about with sleep and management and mental health and all the things that you do, because are you an energy worker also?
Not in the purest sense,
okay.
But I do what I call natural medicine, and then I like to tell people that you can find a customized set of mind-body practices that work for you. Mm-hmm. So, and some I recommend, and some I have to explore.
If you had one thing that you were going to tell our audience that was, as far as sleep and mind is concerned, the most important thing you can think of, you really need to think about this, what would that thing be?
I would say figure out your unique sleep need, so that 3-day process that we talked about, and then once you figure it out, be very diligent about it. Like, make breaking it the exception, not the rule. And if you can, try to make sure you're asleep at least 1 hour before midnight, if not 2, to give yourself the best long-term benefits of sleep.
It might have.
I know, I'm hardcore.
That's a new resolution, Josh. You might have to go back and do that podcast.
Yeah, it's funny because people will try to start texting me or whatever. Oh, and I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and people text me at 9:30. I'm thinking, I was already in the bed. Sorry. Missed it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. But yeah, that's another thing. Like, be very diligent about your devices. Some people, like Mel talked about, not having it in your room. I have it across the way from me. It's on do not disturb and silent, so no sounds and vibrations will come out of it while I'm asleep. And then I don't turn off the do not disturb and the silent until I've done that first part of my day practice, right, where I've done my mental practice.
Yeah, I'm the same way. As soon as I'm clear of any time my boss might text me at night, even if I'm still working, it goes on do not disturb, and it comes off do not disturb after I've done my exercise and had my breakfast, and then it's back on do not disturb when I go back to sleep in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's key.
Well, I actually put on the do not disturb probably about 11 o'clock at night, just so I'm not looking at it. But I mean, that doesn't mean, I still stay up till 3, and it comes off normally about a half hour after I figure I'm going to be awake, which is about 8:30 in the morning. But sometimes I forget, and my sisters get to talking early, texting in Maryland. I'm like, okay, so I have learned that whole do not alert me to these bantering women alarm thing and the thing. But so that's very good. I think this has been very helpful. This is very helpful.
Well, I hope it's helpful.
Camille, where would you like people to connect with you?
So if somebody wants to just get a sense for whether they have sleep or stress issues, I always like to have people start with an assessment. So if you go to meetwithcamille.com, it's really my scheduling service where you can schedule a variety of meetings with me, but they can schedule a free consultation, and in that link, it'll share a hyperlink to a sleep and stress assessment. So they do the assessment, I get an email notification, I can let them know that I received it, and then if they would like to schedule with me, they can. So that's one thing. And then also I have just a really one sheet top things that you should do to manage your sleep, and it's called, if you go to freesleepguide.com, they can just sign up to get that quick and dirty bullet point list of sleep recommendations. So yeah, and it covers everything. It covers, sleep environment, body stuff, aids, if you have pain, that sort of stuff. So just a little quick and dirty guide.
Cool.
How about social?
So my website is CamilleNisich.com. That's my just blog and everything. And then Facebook, it's Camille Nisich 1 is my page. And Twitter, Camille Nisich. So I'm pretty easy to find. Mostly Camille.
And we'll have all your info at on the show notes for the episode too.
Excellent. So yeah. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, gentlemen. If I can help you with your sleep or anything else in the future, please let me know.
I'll take a look at my habits and see if I need some intervention here. That's what you said on the first. That's what you said on the first call, right? Oh, I see some intervention here. Yeah.
I'm happy to help with interventions.
See how that works. All right. So anyway, Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. You too.
Bye.
Bye. I guess they don't realize we stay on after they leave. Now let's talk about it and put this on the podcast now. Wasn't that awesome?
That was awesome. All right. So you changing any habits immediately after hearing that? I guess as long as we're still, recording and.
Oh, you want me to say? You want me to say something for the crowd?
Yeah.
Oh no. I don't know. I might look at that. I've often thought, what I have noticed, because I do my vitamin Ks every morning and stuff, that if I have done those ahead of time, that I am more apt to sleep earlier, by a couple hours anyway, but not normally before midnight. So I'm gonna have to think about it. There might be something I change. Maybe I'll try that little earlier thing and see. Or actually, I think what I'm more going to do is just log what my actual sleep pattern is. Just write it down so I can look at it when I lay down and go to sleep. When I wake up the next morning, just to know what those are first of all, and then maybe note, how I feel if I'm groggy or sluggish or anything like that. But And then we'll see. Because, like, I feel fine, but, maybe I'm just telling myself I'll feel fine because that's what I do. How about you?
Well, I need to work on light because I usually take my afternoon nap in the second bedroom, which is darker than in the master bedroom. I do sleep in a room with they're heavy curtains, but they're lighter colored, and there's a street lamp that pours straight in, so it is not super dark. We do have an alarm clock in the room. It's dim and green, so I might consider a sleep mask. And I know I have to be pretty picky about them because I know that they can be disruptive if they're uncomfortable.
A sleep mask? You mean?
Yeah, like something that goes like a blindfold kind of deal.
Make it feel like you're in that float tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I don't know. I'll let you know. We'll report back.
Yeah. So, I guess this, if you're listening to this the day it came out, it's on Christmas. So Merry Christmas, and thank you for being here, Kelvin. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Audible. Thank you, everybody, for another great year, because our next episode comes out on January 1 of 2018.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. Oh, show notes.
Show notes.
Connect with Camille. All that links will be at jkwdpodcast.com. This is episode 81. And we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com.